Some people may debate that the United States is losing grip of its power. However, that is not true. Some people tout China as the next superpower or already, but China has its flaws and China would not overtake the United States. And that's because of democracy. The United States is a beacon of democracy. This year's presidential election has an impact on how the world democracy outlook would be for the next 4 years and the next foreseeable future. This year alone, about 3.2 billion of the world's population will go to the polls. The world's biggest democracy, India, will go to the polls. Mexico, another power in the world, will go to the polls. Fortunately, this year, Mexico will have their first female president. The United Kingdom will go to the polls. Many countries in Asia and Africa will go to the polls. The United States itself will go to the polls in November. As it stands now, Donald Trump seems to be leading in the Republican primaries, and Joe Biden is also expected to stand for the Democrats. However, democracy is at stake because the United States, that stands for democracy, that's the beacon of democracy. In my estimation and from where I sit, has really put herself or itself in a position that whatever step they take would define or redefine how elections, how democracy, how the future of certain countries was structured. For instance, people would always want to speak and eat like the Americans. Everything that people do will always refer to the Americans. In the field of health, in the field of politics, when you are writing any academic literature, the United States is always the focal point whenever you want to make reference. So is democracy and so is elections. Let me give you a typical example. In the year 2000, when Al Gore and former President George Bush contested, the state of Florida had some contestations and they had to take the case to court. However, the 25 states elections were given to George Bush, which eventually made him the president of the United States. Ghana looked at how the United States took election dispute to court, also made reference to that and took Ghana's elections to court. That was the first of its kind in sub-Saharan Africa. And Ghana set the pace using the United States. 2, the United States used the electronic voting system, biometric voting system. You just go, you don't need to use the paper, you just go and then the biometric and it does. And most countries look up to the United States and they feel that this system of voting is very efficient. Therefore, most countries in Africa, especially Ghana, where I come from, have implemented the biometric voting system. So now you see how the United States has influence on so many countries when it comes to democracy and governance. Now let's delve back into the country that brought democracy itself. In recent times, the United States has not behaved appropriately, in my estimation, when it comes to democracy in the world. In 2016, when Donald Trump became the president of the United States of America, the Democrats decried the election results and said there was Russian interference, and the Russians made Donald Trump the president of America. Republicans were happy that he was the president. Democrats certainly were not. And that was the first instance the Americans themselves put a dent on their own democratic credentials. You see, when you accuse your own system of being hacked into, when you accuse your own system of being vulnerable and can't be hacked into, then it gives some of the young democracies some form of doubt, and it also emboldens some of the autocrats and those countries that continue to practice communism and socialism. Two, in 2020 elections, when President Donald Trump lost the elections, or when the elections were conducted, Donald Trump said the elections were not accurate. That led to the January 6th Capitol riot. Fast forward, this narrative continues. Now, Donald Trump has gone through numerous criminal charges, and this has gone viral throughout the whole world, with some debating that these are criminal charges, but the manner in which they were leveled against him were inappropriate. Some also say in the real estate industry, these things are bound to happen and they are normal. Yes, they are normal, but Donald Trump is not a normal person. He is the former president of the United States. So anything that the ordinary man would do and walk away, Donald Trump probably would not walk away with something he has done. Nonetheless, about 72% of Republicans believe that Donald Trump has been treated unfairly and it is a witch hunt. Some also believe, the Democrats believe otherwise, but the statistics are glaring for us to all see. All these claims put a dent on the image of the United States. You see, these things have propelled someone like Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, to say probably everything can be falsified, just like the previous elections in the United States were rigged. Via postal vote immediately afterwards, it is clear that voting by mail is. They bought tickets for $10, wrote on them, and without any supervision of observers, put them in mailboxes, and that's it. You see, when you question your own system of electoral process, like I said, it emboldens other leaders who have clinged to power and don't want to give democracy a chance. It emboldens the communist states. It emboldens dictators in Africa. And that is what we see right now. The United States have shot herself in the foot. They told us that democracy is the best way. And actually, we have all been witnesses to democracy, how it has led to the development of Africa in particular. Democracy is the best way for us to all go. But the United States has taken somewhat, seem to forget that everyone look up to them when it comes to presidential and parliamentary elections globally. The United States is deeply divided. It is a nation that is deeply divided now. Democrats, Republicans, blacks, whites. And that is the problem the United States need to fix if they really want to put everyone on track. Because the outcome of the elections in the United States and how the elections in the United States are conducted will define the geopolitical landscape. Whatever that goes on in the United States, the world is watching. Gone are the days where technology was limited in most part of the world. Today, something happens in Michigan, New York, Washington, and with the twinkle of an eye, oh, it is roaming everywhere in the internet. That is the power of technology in the 21st century. So, in as much as Americans may disagree on certain issues and policies, when it comes to your electoral process, we are not saying that you should not discuss pertinent issues on your national televisions or anywhere. But what we from the developing countries, what we, the young democratic countries, ask for is for you to engage in debates that will not question your own principles, which is democracy. Whatever that happens in the United States, the election, whoever that wins, the world would always accept any leader that the United States presents. Now the world is confronted with war in the Middle East, coup d'etats in Western Africa and Eastern Africa, border and land disputes between Somaliland and Ethiopia. We have the aggression in Asia that is from North Korea and the aggression of China against Taiwan. For the Middle East situation, we can talk about it from now till eternity. So whatever that happens in the United States, it has an impact on the geopolitical landscape. Whatever that happens in the United States elections will have an impact. However, we do not know whether it is Donald Trump or Joe Biden. But what we know and what we from the developing world, what we see and what we appeal is the United States should act as they are supposed to, because they, citizens of the United States, do not even realize that they live in a deeply divided country, and that has its impact on their political debates, that has an impact on their foreign policies. Well, we cannot tell the United States how to handle or manage their own affairs. However, as young democracies, we will always look up to the United States. If the United States say their elections have been rigged or Russia can interfere in their elections, then you can imagine what a country like Ghana, Senegal, Nigeria will do in their next elections. Because the United States, almighty the United States, elections have been rigged before. So, some of these crooked leaders in Africa would hide behind the pretense of similar things happening in the United States to rig elections and remain in power. A word to the wise, they say, is enough. The name is Mandela. on Mandela Unveiled. Make sure to subscribe, leave us a comment, hit the notification button, like, post our videos, share and reshare, and make sure to share the word.